how did you kind of come by on how to really play this character?
When I saw the design, I saw him lifting rocks. I mean, I thought of Akira. So I thought of Tetsuo. I just loved the Blind Forest so much. I thought, you know what, I'm going to write an email. They got back to me and, we see that you're an animator and we really like your work and let's stay in touch. What I loved about Disney, and still do really, when they were doing hand-drawn films, there's just a quality to it that mesmerized me. And I thought, that's what I want to do.
You worked on 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies as a senior animator.
There was a sequence early on in the first film. What am I doing here with a talking tree and a raccoon? And Rocket said, what's a raccoon? And I animated that.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Behind the Voice. I'm joined by the incredible Boris. Hi, Stan. You might know has played Sigma in Overwatch, and recently in the No Rest for the Wicked game, he's also played so many characters, but Boris and King Magnus being the 2 that you might have seen in the beginning. Thank you so much for joining, Boris. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to meet you, man. Let's get into it.
Yes. And how's your life been so far? Like, how's this year been? It's been already halfway through, and it feels like it's just flying by.
Yeah, it's nuts. What the hell's going on with time? I remember when it was January and I thought like, oh, I'm going to be really healthy this year and I'm going to do all these amazing things.
Yeah.
And now it's August and I'm thinking, maybe I should get started on all of that stuff.
Crazy.
It's been busy. No, I've had a busy year. Yeah, I mean, the voice thing is still kind of a sideline gig, something I really enjoy doing. But my main career is still animation, and I've been really busy directing a kids TV show for the last nearly 3 years. Wow. And it's coming to the end, so it's kind of, we're all wrapping things up. And there's a feature film project that I'm helping to develop at the moment as well. So it's kind of dividing my time between those 2 things, and so it's all very, very exciting and very busy at the same time. And then still going to London very regularly to do little voice gigs on the side as well. And then having a family and having a house that needs repairing every now and again. So it's I'm keeping myself busy.
Yeah.
What about you?
I am keeping myself busy too. It's a lot of keeping myself busy. It's a lot of trying to play games and realizing I need to work on other things, and then I have to play this game too. But then I realized it's been a few months and I should have played this game, and then I had to talk to an actor. I'm like, shit, I didn't play this game. So it's like a lot of these things that goes along. But it's so cool that you're animator, being an animator, that's being your number one thing, and voice acting being kind of a side thing. And you mentioned about this kids movie, is it? Can you talk?
It's a TV show.
Okay.
It's a TV show. And even though I've been working on it for nearly 3 years, I still can't say too much about it. But it's about a 9-year-old secret agent who travels the world, looking for adventure and kicking ass. And it's good fun. It's good fun. So hopefully they'll be announced and will come be released out into the world soon.
Hopefully.
But yeah, it's been good fun.
Wow, that's crazy. And you I think I saw recently, maybe it could be some time ago, but you went with your family on a trip to New Zealand and Australia. Like, when was that? Really?
Yeah. No, I mean, my partner is half Kiwi.
Oh.
So she's got lots of family out there, and we thought it was time to visit, and I'd never been before, and so we went for 2 months. We left at the end of February, and for most of March and April we were gone. We were in New Zealand, just traveling all across the North Island and South Island, and then into Australia at the end of it for another, I think it was a week and a half. That would have been nice if it was longer, but 2 months is a long time to travel.
Sure.
Especially with a 4-year-old, but it was so much fun. We had an incredible time. Beautiful country. Both countries beautiful and lovely people, and I mean, it's amazing. I wish we could go back all the time, but it's so far. It's literally the other side of the world. Never traveled so far in my life. It's quite the ordeal, but fantastic. I recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to go to New Zealand, Australia. Australia, I'm a bit intimidated by because of everything being
the creatures.
The creatures, yeah.
All the creatures,
That's the one. Everybody's trying.
Yeah, we saw some spiders.
Were they scary enough for you? or like it's fine?
Yeah, we saw some creatures, but no, I mean, not too many. I mean, it was amazing to see just to see kangaroos in the wild. That was something that, because we've all seen kangaroos maybe in a zoo or at least on Google,
Yeah.
but to see them in real life is something else.
Uh-huh. True.
It's wonderful. It's really really cool.
That's cool. Hopefully one day, someday, I get to go there. And do
Good.
you remember?
Good.
Do you have like a favorite place you went to, like some place that you thought like, oh, this is amazing, definitely up there?
I think that the area around Queenstown in the South Island. I mean, everyone says it, but it's for a good reason. I think that the nature there is just so insane.
Yeah.
And yeah, Mount Cook. The thing is, there's a lot of these a lot of these environments like forests and mountains, and there's a lot of that stuff that you've all kind of seen a mountain, but these mountains it's like times 3 or 4. The scale of it is just so big and so vast, and the air is clean and it smells not. It's like there's a purity to it and a ruggedness to it that's quite hard to describe, and you kind of have to be there to really bathe in that and just look around and just go. It's amazing. We went on a helicopter tour to walk on a glacier as well, which was
Wow.
just beautiful, 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 wonderful trip, amazing.
Wow.
Everyone should go.
That sounds amazing. Wow. Never been to all this. But yeah, hopefully one day, planning from now on. Let's see. But yeah, you mentioned about being an animator, and I think you talked about somewhere that Disney was the one, or Disney movies in some ways were the one that got you in more excited to be an no, got to know more about animation and stuff, got to really understand in that way. So do you remember a movie or anything that you saw from Disney that really made you, oh, yes, I want to know more about animation?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one because I was just watching so much of it when I was a kid. I mean, I was watching Don Bluth films and I was watching Disney. I think it's that what I loved about Disney and still do really, although it's become a completely different company and the type of stuff they do is so different now. But when they were doing hand-drawn films, there's just a quality to it. Now obviously everything is primarily CG. There's still some beautiful hand-drawn work being done. There's quite a lot of it actually. But when I grew up in the 80s, there really only was hand-drawn, and a lot of it was just quite crude. When shorts and TV shows and even features tended to be quite crude, but it was always the Disney stuff that was just so well done. The craft and the artistry behind it was just really a different level, and so it was just that mesmerized me. So that was already from an early age. I could very easily tell the difference in quality. That there was something special about these things and the way they were made. Everything just looked so much better, and there was a way of the characters moving that really appealed to me. It's like quite over the top, but at the same time very grounded and based on a certain reality. Characters had weight, and the acting was good, and some of it had subtleties, and it had so it was all that stuff, that the nuance and the craftsmanship and the quality of the drawing that just always really really appealed to me, and so I was always trying to copy it. I think it was actually Robin Hood, because I think that was one of the first of their films that was released on video, which seems hard to imagine now because now people have Disney Plus and
Yeah.
there's Blu-rays and everything is available. But there was a time when these films were only ever seen every 10 or 15 years when they would re-release them in the cinema.
Mhm.
And that made it quite special, that you didn't have access to Snow White until Snow White was released again in the cinemas, and that would only happen every decade or two. And so I think in the late 80s, they slowly started to release these things on video. And I think Robin Hood was one of the first ones that they released. And so when I had enough pocket money, I went out to buy Robin Hood on VHS. And I remember just playing that tape again and again and again and again, and pausing it and looking at the drawings and being amazed at the there's these in-betweens that where an arm is broken, or there's a what they call breaking of a wrist or a joint, or something is dragging behind, and a jaw lags or the eyes are half closed, and it's not the key poses that make something sell or that you see on the covers of these movies, but it's like the movement where a character is like posed in a really awkward way, and that mesmerized me. I thought like, oh, this is amazing, you know. That's what gives it that sense of weight and movement, and you know, the way a head is just kind of moving, the body leads and then the head drags as if the muscles aren't really working, and it's kind of flopping around a little bit. And there was one animator called Mild Kahl, who in the animation industry everyone knows, and he was kind of the master of that, of making all these secondary motions and making everything flop and bounce around. And there was the Sheriff of Nottingham, and he had this walk where his arms were just going all over the place, and it was completely ridiculous when you break it down and you analyze it. But it was done so well. It looked so appealing and so sexy in a way, the movement of it, and that is what really, really got me into it. And I thought, that's what I want to do. And then I guess, but I was only, I think, 9 at the time, or 10, and it wasn't until they started to become really successful again in the 90s. I think it was around the time of Aladdin and The Lion King, where I realized more as a teen, because I was a teenager then, and I realized, oh, this is actually a job that people get paid to do, you know, that this is actually a career, that some people do this for a living. So I think it was Robin Hood that really got me into that kind of drawing and wanting to draw those characters all the time. But it was, I think it must have been The Lion King, really, that made me go like, there's a career path here. That's what I want to do. Sorry, that was a very long answer to a simple question. But yes, it was probably one of those films that got me into it.
I love that. No, I love the so much depth is there present for the Disney movies, because, you know, even me growing up, Disney obviously was the first one with the animated stuff, and I started watching with the Lion Kings and the Aladdin, and watching that, and my mind was blown away how so cool that was. I had no idea how any of that was. I was like, this is very cool, that's it. And much later I realized that, okay, animation is a thing. And so, you know, always, and I think when I just finished high school, I think my idea was like, I'm going to go towards animation, but not the hand-drawn 2D animation, because at that time I already saw CGI was already a thing. So I already saw the 3D stuff, and I wanted to go there, but it requires so much patience, and I realized I don't have that. So I pivoted in some other direction. So, but do you remember working on your very first project as an animator?
Yeah, actually, because there was a little studio in Amsterdam, and at the time they were called, well, they don't exist anymore, sadly, because it was a wonderful little studio set up by 2 American guys, Lawson Ross, what's his name? It was called. It was a real fun studio, and it was mainly driven by a guy called Greg Lawson, who I'm still very good friends with. Wow. And he made this short film called Safe Sex: The Manual, which was, you know, it was animated well, and it was just this wonderful little film. It was about, you know, use a condom and be wise and all that, and it had a very kind of adult humor. It was very lewd, and I think it played in the cinema in front of, I think it was Forrest Gump, but a big film, so that made it kind of have legs as well, and a lot of people saw it in Holland. And I think it went around the world, but I'm not sure, at least in festivals. But I watched that and I thought, this is amazing. And I realized that it was made in Holland. And so I just went to look for the studio, and I found the studio that did this little film. And I got in touch with them. And they had a whole series. That's what kind of kept them, that's what made them pay the bills. They had a whole series of little short films for Dutch school television. And so they had a school television program, and it was part fun and part educational. And they had these animated shorts that were mainly songs. And I think they would crank out probably 2 or 3 of these a month. I can't remember, because this is in 97 or 96, 97, how many they did. But they seem to always be turning these things over. And one of the things that they did is they got interns and young people who are just getting into the business to do these things for them. And basically, it meant that they could get them done really cheaply. And at the same time, they provided an education to these young people wanting to get into animation. And I wasn't an intern. I was a 17-year-old. I was still going to secondary school. So I wasn't an intern there, but I just contacted them and I said, hey, this is, and they said, oh, let's look at your work. And I was already drawing and I was doing stuff because I met this old veteran Danish animator called Borg Ring. That's a whole other story. But I used to visit him. He kind of became a mentor figure to me. And I was kind of already getting, soaking up a lot of old animation knowledge. And he got me in touch with some old Disney animators I was corresponding with and writing letters to and then getting letters back. And I was just in heaven, I was a teenager, just already in touch with some animators. And I just thought, this is it. This is where I'm going. And then they saw that I had been doing some sketches and I had a few like little tiny snippets of animation that I did in my spare time, just pencil on paper. And so they got me in to do one of those school TV shorts. So my first job was in animation was when I was 17, doing a little short. And it was a great learning school because I had to do the whole thing. So I had to do a little storyboard and then I had to do the main poses. And I would go in, it was the first remote job I had as well, because I was just doing it all from home because I was still going to school. So I wasn't allowed to.
Makes sense.
I didn't live in Amsterdam. I was an hour away. So I couldn't just go there every day. So I would do a week or maybe 2 weeks worth of work. And then I would go take the train, go to Amsterdam, show them what I had done. And then they gave me some, some instructions and directions like, maybe more of this and maybe more of that. And that's how we made the film. And in the end, I didn't color it. I think they scanned in the drawings and they colored the drawings digitally because they had software. Because now, I mean, it makes me sound like such an old man, but now everyone has computers and you could do this stuff easily. And a teenager could easily make a film by themselves. Maybe not easily. Of course, it takes a lot of hard work and perseverance, but it's very it's very in easy reach, I should say, to create something because you've got all the tools. You can even do something on your phone now, really.
Yeah.
You don't even need a big desktop anymore. But back then, that didn't really. It existed, but it was very expensive. It was thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds to get a decent computer to do that kind of stuff. And of course, as a 17-year-old, you don't have access to that kind of stuff. So it was amazing to be able to do that. That was my first job. And then I was 18 and I moved to England to study and to really kind of get started then.
Brilliant. That is so cool. Yeah, there's something about animation that always sticks to me. And it's always, whenever I see whatever animation it might be now, like I know a lot of people, because of this Spider-Verse movie that came out with a different style of animation, kind of like not exactly 24 frames. It has reduced by probably half, 12 frames per second, I think. And so that kind of brought a fresh perspective. Oh, this animation is cool again. I'm like, it was always cool from the very beginning. What are you talking about? So I just really like the animation, and I still feel like the drawing animation in that way, the very, very basic, all the way back when Mickey Mouse was a thing, like when it started, still like those things. And I still sometimes watch here and there, like, oh, that's so cool to still watch to this day. It's so amazing.
Yeah. I mean, in my spare time, I'm chipping away. Although it's been months since I've done anything on it because I just never have the time. But I've been chipping away at a tiny little 2D animated, like a hand drawn, tiny little short, which hopefully one day will be done. And then I'll be so embarrassed about it that I'll probably won't show it to anyone. But it's just a bit of fun on the side because I've been mainly directing for the past 8 years, but also even before then. I mean, it was already in the mid 2000s that I switched to CG because there was just a lot of work. There wasn't a lot of work. It was all drying up in hand-drawn animation. And I mean, there are people who stuck to hand-drawn and still made a career and did well. So I don't, it's never really gone away. But I guess I kind of knew that I was never that amazing at it. So I thought, a tool that can take the drawing away from me and just make me able to focus on the performance. That's something that appealed to me, really.
Yeah.
So
understandable. Yeah. And as you mentioned, like CG came upon 3D became a thing, and now everything is CG, which a lot of people kind of complain about it. But I did see that you worked on two Guardians of the Galaxy movies as a senior animator, which is really cool to see. What were your role like? What did you do as a senior animator at the time? It's completely different from what you've done before with animated movies. So what was this role
Yeah.
like? And because it is live action.
Well, on a film like that, even though it's a massive film, because it's a massive film, they tend to split the film up into chunks, and they give, there's several companies. There was Framestore was the company I worked at the time, and they gave a chunk of the film to Framestore, like that's your chunk, and they gave another chunk to a company called MPC, and they gave another chunk to, I don't know. I think there's quite a few that worked on various aspects of it. And Framestore, I think it was mainly Framestore and MPC were the two companies that were responsible for animating Rocket and Groot, the two, completely animated characters. Because there's not just those characters. There's obviously environments, and there's spaceships, and there's explosions and effects and all that stuff. And that's not really what I do. I'm more of a character animator. So, or I used to be. I don't know. I haven't done it in a while. But I was working on Rocket and Groot shots really. So there was a sequence at the start of or early on in the first film where there's a big prison environment, and that's kind of where they meet, right? And they all get incarcerated, and then they kind of break out, and that whole sequence was done by us. So I just got a bunch of shots, and it's basically, you have a group of animators who has an animation supervisor, and then a couple of lead animators who kind of oversee. So there's a couple of levels of hierarchy. And then in the animator pool, I can't remember how many of us there were, maybe 12 or something, maybe more. I honestly can't remember. But there's junior animators, and then there's kind of mid-level animators, and then there's senior animators. Or maybe there's only juniors and seniors. I wasn't really too bothered by that. It doesn't really matter anyway, because a lot of what I always find so funny is that a lot of people now, young people, are so hungry, and they're so damn good at what they do. So they come onto, they start a job as a junior, but they get credited as a junior, if that's even a thing, because I think everyone just now gets credited on one big pile. Yeah. But they're basically, they get senior shots, and they do senior work because they're so good. So the whole junior senior thing doesn't really mean that much. But yeah, you just get shots. So you get allocated a shot. So there's a bunch of shots where Rocket is I think they got their blankets or something, and they're waiting in line, and he's meeting the Star-Lord Quill character. And he said, what the hell is what am I doing here with a talking tree and a raccoon? And Rocket said, what's a raccoon? And I animated that. And then he says, well, that's what you are, stupid. And he says, ain't no thing like me but me. And then there's a bunch of shots where Groot is walking in the prison, and there's a big guy who's also fully animated who lifts one of the goons up, and I did some shots with that guy, and it's just you basically get given some random shots, and then you do them. There's one sequence that was a whole series of shots, which was all mine, and I was so happy that I was on that, and I knew it was going to be good. And the whole thing got cut from the film.
No.
And it's one of those things that happens, It was because and now they sell these little bobblehead things of Groot, and it's because everyone knows that Groot is all about music and dancing, right? Because it kind of became that character. Also in the second film, that was much more explored.
Yeah.
But in the first one, that wasn't really clear until the end, because I think he dies, and then he comes back as a little sprout, and the sprout is kind of dancing, right? And I think that's how the first film ends. But there was a joke, or there was a lead up to that, where Groot hears music for the very first time. He's never heard music, or at least music from Earth, right? And he's not familiar with it. But he hears it, and he goes, what the hell is that? And then he starts to kind of rock back and forth, and he goes, hey, oh yeah, I like this. And then he starts to kind of do this dance move. And it was a series of shots over the course of, I think, half a minute or a minute, where they were all in the ship getting ready. And it was a bit of a nothing moment. It had a song, and it was just a nice character moment, but it had no dialogue. It didn't progress the story. And so I think in the end they decided to cut it to make the film a bit more tight and compact. And it's one of those things that happens all the time. But I love that moment because it was really about him finding his groove and going like, oh yeah, I like this. And I could tell that if it was in the film, I kind of knew like, oh, I think the audience is going to love this. It's going to be one of those real cool little defining moments for that character. And when they cut it, because you never know what they're going to cut, so you do your work. And although actually I knew that they cut it because it was never rendered. It was only ever in grayscale. It was never lit or rendered. So they actually cut it before I left. So I knew it was out, but before I saw the movie. But yeah, one of those things. But yeah, and I must have done a bunch more shots as well. But and then I think in the second one I did a bunch of shots with Baby Groot in the cage, and also kind of when they're locked up by the whoever the hell they are, Ravagers or something, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, those films were great fun, and I really, I mean, I was only on the second one for a very short amount of time. So the first one I did a good chunk of, but the second one I was only on for a very short time. But they were both great fun.
Wow, it's very cool to get to know more information from the inside on how things really happen. And I know like there's so much, everything is split up, everything has been divided and given to number of teams, and then there's other chunks.
But that's, I mean, the problem, or not the problem, but what I never really liked that much about those types of projects is that it's so big that you never really get to contribute that much. You get to do a few shots here and there. You never meet the director. You're never really in direct contact with them. You know, there's so many layers of hierarchy in between you and the top level creatives. But at the same time, it's a fun process, and it's just nice to craft a little performance and to, you know, you sit behind your desk, you have your music on, and you get paid to craft a nice little performance that's going to be in a big blockbuster film. You know, it's a good job, and I had an enormous amount of fun on it, and it was a great project as well. So, but yeah, you were just given a random shot. Like, here, Boris, you're free because you're just about to finish that shot. You'll be free tomorrow, right? Yeah, I'll be free tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to send you a bunch of shots. Okay, great. And then you check your email, and then they give you a sequence, and you look at the sequence so you get a sense of the context. Your shots fit in there. You do shot A, B, C, D. And then you just start working on it and crafting on it, and then it gets sent. And then you talk to your direct, leads or supervisors or whatever, and you can talk to them about it. So you can say, I agree with this. This is great. How about this? And you have a little creative discussion about it. And then you do your thing, and then it gets sent off once everyone's happy to the higher uppers far away in their Hollywood castles. Mm-hmm. And then they get to look at it in their own time while they, smoke cigars and drink whiskey, and while they get foot rubs. I'm sure it's not like that, but that's how I imagine it.
I would imagine the
and
same.
Then and then you've been working on something for a month, and they say, "This is terrible. Do it again." And or they say, "This is great." So it's an interesting process. But no, I had a great time on those films.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, it's really wonderful to hear, because I have always been interested to know like how it really happens. And I kind of not really recently, but I kind of now realize, okay, it's been divided in this way. There's other companies that come in and do all these shots, and then it's been sent. And now I'm realizing, I'm knowing now that not everything is that. I think the base animation is done. It's all grayscale. I don't think so. It's probably textured as well. So all that thing happens once the whole thing has been kind of greenlit, that whole sequence, and then it's getting textured.
Yeah, you see basic textures, but it's just, it's so to give you a sense of what the character looks like and some of the detailing, but it tends to be basic.
Yeah, that's insane. It's wonderful to know more on that. But like now things are even, there's more things coming on. I know Unreal Engine is a thing, and now everybody's like animating an Unreal Engine, and it's more easier, as you mentioned. Have you been more indulged into Unreal Engine? Do you now look into like, okay, what's new?
I'm working with it now. Yeah, I've been working with it for the last 2 years actually. On this show that I'm doing, it's all Unreal. I mean, for me, it's not such a big change because it's the process is exactly the same, really.
Yeah.
But what Unreal is great at, because it's a games engine, it has this magical ability to render things in real time, or at least do a really close approximation and a slightly lower res version of the thing in real time that you're going to see. And it's been great for television because when you're working on a feature film, you have the time and the money to iterate more. So you light a shot and you get to put your lights where you want, and then you look at it. It takes an hour or two or a day sometimes for a frame to render, and then you look at it and you go, what about this and what about that? And then you go again and you go again, and that takes weeks before you finish a single shot in lighting.
Yeah.
But in Unreal, you get the kind of the final result almost instantaneously once the shot is loaded. That can take a while, but then you see it in front of you, and you can say, oh, can you put a key light there, or can you tone this down, or can you bump this up, or can you give a bit more rim on the face, or a bit more specular on the highlights, and you can really start to play with the attributes of the lighting and the warmth, or the or put some extra depth fog in there, or can you defocus the background more, because it's like comp and lighting at the same time. So you can really play with all these things as you're doing it. And for television, of course, that was unheard of before Unreal, because you couldn't do that. Yeah. You had one master setup that you could play with, and then once that was approved, the entire sequence would get rendered with those settings, and then you just had to be happy with what you got. And now it's becoming more possible to light television like you would light a feature. And I think that's why now slowly you're starting to see stuff that is lower budget that actually looks really much, much more sophisticated. And it's not because of this amazing, well, I guess it is because of this amazing new technology, but it's the process is the same. It's just that it happens a bit faster, so it's easier and cheaper to do more versions before you approve it.
Yeah. It's
that's
really
been great.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's been worked upon very well on all these terms. But with this animation, with you being still an animator and still working, and also as a director now, but you did work on video games as well. You worked on Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which is one of my really favorite games. When I found Ori and the Blind Forest, I really loved it. Played it in a very bad PC, a laptop actually. And then I played Will of the Wisp, which I was not good at. I died quite a bit, but it was such it was such a good game. I really loved the art style and everything. And you were an animator over there, and you also voiced a character, Quallock. How was that like? I was being part of that project. It's such a beautiful game.
Yeah. Man. Thank you. And it's I feel the same, and I'm very proud of that project. It was so nice to be part of that. I also played Ori and the Blind Forest when it came out.
Yes.
In 2015. I remember I was working at Sony in Vancouver at the time on the Angry Birds movie. And I was there by myself, and so I had time to kill, and so in the evenings I would play Ori and the Blind Forest, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was amazing. And I've done this before, where I think I did it after Uncharted 2 or something. I remember playing, it was one of the Uncharted, maybe it was Uncharted 3, I can't remember. It was one of the Naughty Dog games. And I was so impressed by it that afterwards I wrote an email to them. And I always say to people, you should do that, because it's people really appreciate it. I mean, I think it's great to get messages from people saying like, oh, I love your work. It's nice, if people, because you don't know. I mean, I know Sigma is really popular, so I get a lot of comments about Sigma, but people don't really approach me much for other things. And so I really appreciate that you say you love Ori. And it's the same. I wrote them a letter, and they replied to me saying, "Hey, that's so nice that you got in touch with us, and we looked at your CV, and we see that you're an animator, and are you interested in working with us?" And I did a little test for them, and then I never heard back from them. So I think they didn't want me. But it was the same with Moon. I just loved the Blind Forest so much. I thought, you know what, I'm going to write them an email. Wow. And I said, you guys are amazing. This is such a great game. It really blew me away. I love Metroid, and I love these. It's Disney and Studio Ghibli, and it's got a lot of these inspirations and beautiful flat 2D artwork, multiplane parallax, and just beautiful. And the music is incredible, and I just absolutely love this. And they got back to me and just said, "Oh, this we really appreciate it, and we see that you're an animator, and we really like your work, and let's stay in touch." And then when they were starting on, they'd already been working on the Will of the Wisp for quite a while, but a friend of mine was working as an animator on it, and I found out, and I said, "Hey, are you working with them? That's amazing. What's going on?" And he said, "Oh yeah, you should come over. It's great because it's a remote studio, and so you can, you make up your own hours, and it's great. It's great." And so I got in touch with him, and then I had to do a little test, which in film isn't that's not really the norm. In film, you make a show reel with your work, you send it out, and based on the strength of that, and of course they usually have an interview with you to see if you're not some sort of psychopath. You can string a sentence together, but it's really based off the quality of your show reel, and then you get a job or not. But in games, I think it's quite normal that you actually have to do a test. And I didn't really like that because, of course, you don't get paid for that time, and you have to put a lot of time, and you want to do well because it's there to impress people. So you have to really animation takes time. So, but I thought, it's Moon and it's Ori, and I really like these people, so I'll do the test. And I did a test, and I remember getting the feedback from one of the animators. He said to me, this guy called Warren, lovely guy, great animator. He said, "Yeah, Thomas Marlowe, who's the games director, said Thomas doesn't really like your test. I think you need to can you do a little bit better?" Because I had to admit I'd been kind of doing it quickly on the side because I was already working at the time, and I thought, oh god damn it, I've been working in the animation industry for 15 years. I don't want to do a test.
Yeah.
I was a little grumpy about it, so I didn't put my whole heart and soul into it. I said, it's just not good enough. You have to do better to work here, And so I went like, oh god. So I sat down properly and did the test properly, and then they said, okay, you can come in. And then I was hired as an animator. But on day one of the things that I liked about the studio so much, and that hadn't really occurred to me, is that they say that everyone has a voice and that you have to give them your opinion on pretty much everything. It's a true democracy, that company.
Wow.
And I don't know if they still run that way because I haven't been there for 3 years, but at that time it was a true democracy, and they had these milestones. And after the end of every milestone, there was a big form, and everyone had to fill out the form, and everyone had to play the game, obviously, and write down their feedback and say, what did you think of this? What did you think of that? And so it's not just animators talking about animation. It's artists talking about animation, and it's animators talking about music, and it's concept designers talking about sound effects. Everyone was talking about everything, and all those opinions were taken into account when deciding what to do. And that was very chaotic and disorganized, but it was very, very liberating, and very. I think it gave everyone a real sense of ownership and power on that project. You were invited to bring as much as you wanted to the project. And some people didn't really fill those forms out very well because they didn't really care. They were just there to do a job. Yeah. But I really I latched onto that because I love the project so much. And I had a few things to say about that. I mean, I was invited because a few of the guys said, "Oh, I see you'd been directing this TV series, and could you give us some special attention on the storytelling side of things, and how everything flows, and how one event leads to another, and kind of the structure of the whole thing, gameplay to cinematics, and and vice versa." And I did that, and I was a bit nervous about it because I'd only just started, and I thought, I hope I don't offend anyone with this. I have to, Yeah. But I very quickly found that they're very direct people, and they just want your honest opinion. So I gave it to them, and then they said, "Okay, right, great. Now you're in the story team." So then I was animating, and on top of that, I was in the story team. And because I was doing voices on the side, when it came time to cast the voices, they said, "Oh, and now you're the casting director." And I thought, what? Wow. So I had to listen to all the voice samples and basically cast the voices of the game and direct the voice talent for the game. And then I kind of ended up doing the Toad Kolok, which is a kind of, we had the guy Eric who did the voice of the Spirit Tree in the first game. He's got this really beautiful, really deep, beautiful, booming voice, and he did the spiritry also in the second game, of course. And maybe spoiler alert, but you kind of find out who that character ends up being, or is, or has been all along. And he was in the game, and he was the first one who was cast, and we recorded him, and he was incredible. But we also had a bear who was a big, deep, booming kind of character, and we had a toad who was a deep, booming kind of character.
Yep.
And I think we knew from the start that we couldn't give all those characters to him, but he was so good that I think we kind of did. Although I think we didn't give the bear to him because we knew it was going to be just too obvious, or too similar. Even though he's amazing and he's versatile and he does different types of voices as well. But we thought, we should probably do something else. But we always thought that he was going to be Quolok, the toad. And I think the reason it changed in the end is not because he didn't do a good job, because he's phenomenal and I think he's amazing. But it was probably actually the problem was our direction, because we had told him to be this big booming kind of voice. And once it was in the game, it sounded a bit too aggressive, and it did kind of sounded a bit too similar to the spiritry, and it was kind of like, oh shit, it sounds amazing, but it's just not really working, is it? Because it's just, this guy needs to be warm and he needs to be a friend, and instead of you want a Gandalf character rather than a Saruman character. It was kind of that kind of thing. Instead of this kind of voice, you wanted like a nice warm, come here, everything's going to be okay, that kind of thing. And so I never meant to put myself forward for it, but I quickly put something together. The reason for that was we were 1 month away from shipping the game. Wow. And because the thing is, it's not a vocal or performance driven game. The characters don't really do much acting. It's more like a constructed language. They make funny little sounds. And so no one really was focused on that. And because we were really up against time and we were crunching and trying hard to finish the game, the voices was always something that we left until the end. Oh, we'll do that later. So once we had the voices recorded, it was almost already too late to change anything. So the first thing I thought was, okay, we need to go back to Eric to re-record the voice in this warmer thing, because I'm sure he can do it. But then I was told, now we don't have the money anymore to pay him because everything's gone. The game needs to go. What if we record with him again? But then we found out that he still isn't quite right. What do we do then? And so we were really up against it. And I thought, okay. And I just did something, and I recorded it, and I sent it to the guys, and they said, yes, fine, that'll do. You can do it. And I thought, what? What do you mean? I can? Yeah, that's good enough. You can do the frog. Oh, okay. But where am I going to record? I don't have a studio set up at home, and I figure it out. So I had to call around, and I found a studio local to where I live here, and like half an hour from here. And I drove there one day, and I recorded the whole thing several times without any director telling me what to do. Jeez. And I think it was literally like a couple of weeks before the game came out, and I sent it to and then we were really scrambling because there were a few animators that were then trying, because there's a couple of scenes where I think when you have already spoken to Quolok and you then do a retalk, then he's got a generic cycle. Yeah. But when he says his lines for the first time, they're actually lip synced to the dialogue. So then we were scrambling to lip sync all, and I did a few shots, and a couple of animators did another few shots. We were all trying to get all the animation done in time, and it was really a race against time to get this game out. But yeah, that was how I ended up doing the frog. It was a really unexpected last minute addition. And that's kind of what it was over there, Oh, do you want to do this thing here? Or, oh, do you want to do this thing there? I spent a few weeks just doing camera tweaks for, when a character enters like the hub, or we call it the hub. I think it's called the Wellspring Glades or something. Yeah. Where you have all the nice, whenever you enter a certain area, the camera zooms out or it zooms in. But it's a very delicate balance to get that right, and it always has. Sometimes it's fast because you need it for the interaction. Sometimes it's slow, and someone had just put in like a plugin or a random thing that was exactly the same zoom in or zoom out, and it lasted exactly the same amount of time. And so it was quite jarring. And I went through all the cinematics and all the moments where you hit areas, and I thought, the camera needs to be a little bit further. It needs to take a little bit longer. It needs to be a little bit smoother. So you don't really notice it so much, but you kind of feel it, and it has a nice feel to it. And I was doing that for weeks, just doing camera animations. It wasn't my job, but I thought, I think that needs attention. And then I flagged it up, and they said, yeah, okay, you do it then. If you have a problem with it, you fix it. And so I went into Unity, and I'd learn how, because I didn't know how to use Unity either, how to use those tools, and then just kind of, work on it for a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And I think everyone was like that. It's like, oh yeah, you do this, you do that. And we kind of figured it out, whatever needed to be done just got done. And it didn't really matter who did it. If someone had a problem, okay, great, fix it. That was good fun.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's kind of what happened on the second game, which is No Rest for the Wicked, which is out now in early access, which I've played a little bit of, and I find it very hard. You say Ori, Will of the Wisp is hard, but this is
is much. No Rest for the Wicked. I tried. I'm like, I don't think I can finish it.
There's the first big boss character. I think it's called Warwick the Torn. I still haven't beaten him, and that's before you get to the main village where you meet all the characters and you get all your quests. So I never even got to that part. So I still haven't experienced a lot of my own characters that I got to voice in that game. But that was quite special because that game was it was called Forsaken at the time, and I'll always think of it as Forsaken. It was kind of the code name, I guess, at the time. And it was already kind of in early development, but there was really only one guy. It's an amazing guy called Robin Hubb, and he was really putting the bones of it all together, the foundation for the game. So he was in Unity. He was playing with, climbing, jumping, hacking, slashing, putting basic things in. And every now and again, when someone had idle time on Ori, they would be put onto Forsaken. So, oh, can you please do a run animation? Or can you please do a monster spawning from the ground animation? Or, that kind of stuff. And then he would put it all together. And he asked me, he said, hey, you do voices, right? And I said, yeah, I do voices. Can you help me out with this game? Because basically, you do a prototype and you put in, I think he put in music from Game of Thrones. I think he had, and Lord of the Rings, he put in temp music, and he found libraries of sound effects, and he put those in for, swords, clashes, and all sorts of stuff. And so there was no sound designer, there was no musician at that time, and there were no actors. And of course, because you don't get those until later. But it's still nice to get a sense and a feel for the game. So it's good to have those temporary elements in there. So he asked me, can you please do me a whole library of effort sounds, grunts and climbing and drowning and all sorts of. And he kept, every couple of days, he emailed me with a new list of sounds, and then I would go by my microphone and I would do them, send them to him. And then, so slowly the game, and I still have a prototype here where I do every single voice, even some of the female voices in the game, Odessa is a character. I did some Odessa voices, and to put together the really early animatics of the game. And it sounds ridiculous and stupid, but it was a lot of fun. And that's kind of how that started. And then when Ori had finished, and I think I was burnt out a little bit because it was a really, really hard, really, really tough, long journey to get there. And I did it with pleasure, but I needed a little bit of a break. And I also thought Forsaken, or I should really say No Rest for the Wicked, it's a beautiful game. I would love to play this when it comes out, but I kind of felt narratively, because at that time they were really focusing on the multiplayer aspect of it. And I still think that they have been focusing on that a lot. I should not say too much about it. I know it's already been announced and multiplayer is coming. And I don't know to what extent that is still a big part of the game. Maybe it's even the big part of the game that they haven't revealed. I don't know. But at that time, they were really focusing on the multiplayer part of it, multiplayer. Yeah. and it was early, and it completely changed. So it may not be that at all anymore. I don't know, but at that time it was going to be mainly multiplayer, and so I didn't know where that left me in terms of narrative, because I was all about the story and the cinematics part of it, and I didn't really understand how that was going to work. If I play it with you, and you've already had certain cutscenes or certain story moments happen, but I didn't, how then could we together go forward in the game? Or would it just be a part of the game where it's hacking and slashing or loot boxing? I just didn't really understand it. And because I think everyone was still kind of trying to feel their way around and trying to figure out what it was that we were making, I think that there wasn't a clear-cut answer to that question at that time. I'm sure that now they know exactly what it is that they're doing. But this is 3 years ago, so they were still experimenting a lot and sandboxing a lot. And I thought, I love this. But then I was going to stay on, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. But then I got an offer to direct this TV series, and I thought, you know what, directing, it's something I can't say no to. So I had to go and do it. But lucky for me, they said, oh, we understand, you go do your thing, but can you please keep doing the silly voices for us? So I said, yeah, that's great. And they said, we can't promise you that you're going to be cast in the actual game, but can you please keep doing temp voices for us? So I kept doing that, and I kept doing all the characters from home for, I think, at least another 6, 7, 8 months. Then there was a long period of silence, probably a good year or maybe even more of nothing. And then they started slowly asking me to come to actual studios in London to record the parts again, but do it in a proper environment, in a studio setup. And we recorded one character, and then we recorded another character, and then we recorded another character. And I said, hang on, you're doing this for real now, right? So why the hell am I still doing all the characters? This doesn't make any sense. And they said, yeah, we kind of agree with you, but we got so used to your voice that now we can't hear anything else. And you did a decent job, so you can still do all these characters. And I said, this is actually, I think that people are going to notice, this is actually going to be potentially very embarrassing for me and for you. So I don't think you should do this. You should get some other actors. And I kept saying this because they kept bringing me back for different characters. And I kept saying, guys, you can't do this. But they said, no, don't worry about it. You think that we still only have these characters that you did. But since then, we've expanded the world, and we've got dozens and dozens and dozens of other characters that you don't even know about. And then I thought, okay, well, that's okay then. Then it makes more sense. Yeah. And they said, and the characters that you do are very far spread out, and and they're not interacting with each other. But then they had that the main cinematic that the game starts with is these two characters, these two lords. Lord Boris and this king called
Magnus.
What's his name?
King Magnus. Yeah.
And the cinematic actually starts with the old father whose voice I also did, but that was before they decided to kill him off before the game even starts. Yes. So there's because he used to have some scenes, but the Magnus thing was always because they were always together in a scene, and because it was temp, it didn't really matter what I did, but I did think like, okay, these guys are talking to each other, therefore they should really sound very, very different. And that's why I made the Boris character much lower than my actual voices on purpose, and the Magnus guy much higher than I am naturally, just to keep them apart tonally, so it wasn't going to be too embarrassing or painful. But we always said, and I always thought, that Magnus at least would definitely be recast. And when they got me in to do that character, I said, this is crazy. This doesn't make any sense. Why are you letting me do this guy? They say, well, yeah, we just couldn't find anyone else, because you play him like such a spoiled, arrogant brat, and you just want to slap him in the face when you listen to the voice. And I said, yeah, okay, fair enough. And that's what I think that really, that's quite, I mean, I'm quite happy and proud of the end result. And it was so much fun to do. And I think it's very rare to get that kind of opportunity, because usually an actor gets cast to do
Yeah.
one character, and in a game where they have dozens of NPCs, they throw you a couple more, because otherwise it's just too time consuming to cast so many actors. But to give me so many voices, I just had so much fun. It was fantastic. That really doesn't happen on projects ever, and it happened on this one. That was really, I kind of and they still ask me. I was back a few weeks ago because there's this really creepy character with what looks like a sewer lid for his mask or something like that.
Yeah, right. I saw that.
And they just did an update with that, and I'm that character too. So, and that wasn't a performance in terms of voice, but that was just sounds. He had to sound like he was in pain and whispering and so we had fun doing all sorts of weird squeals and whines and moans and mix it up, I think, with a lot of audio design to come up with the final result. But they still call me up all the time to come back and do more. So that's kind of, I was kind of sad to leave Moon as a game dev, but to still be so involved with them doing voices has been just fantastic. And I hear good things about the game.
Oh yeah.
Like yourself, I haven't got very far with it because it's so difficult, but it looks beautiful, and I really intend to pick it up one day soon and kill that damn boss so I can get to the village.
I can totally. Wow, this is so cool because you're now at this point a veteran, I guess, in Moon Studios in some ways, because you keep going back, and it's so cool that you get to voice all these characters. And I feel like now there's a game coming out called The Alters where there's only one actor, but technically the game is the same character but different versions of him, kind of like a multiverse thing. And so it's essentially it has to be one actor playing all these multiverse version of him. So it's
Great.
just him. So it kind of makes sense. Like he's voicing himself in different versions, and that's it. There's no other actors as far as I know. So you have seen that, but it's so cool to see you kind of like work with Ori games, because I love those games. And then when I saw No Rest for the Wicked announcement, it just looked so good, and I was like, yep, I'm playing it. I did not know what type of game it was. I thought it's gonna be Ori in the Blind Forest kind of thing, but I thought like, okay, it's gonna be action based surely. But when I played it, I did not realize it's gonna be somewhat like a Souls kind of game or something like that. And when I played it, I was like,
scary and grisly and very, very difficult,
very, very
and gory and bloody.
And your first
and again, because you spoke to Madrigal Celine's voiceover actress, and she's also like she's married to one of the animators at Moon, and that's how she got that in. So if anyone wants to be a voice actor, just go to Moon and they'll get you to do the voices for them. Save some penny.
There you go. That's the way to do it.
But she's incredible, by the way. I thought she was amazing, and she's got such a great, low, very commanding and calm voice, and I absolutely love her tone. And she's got such charisma and that beautiful voice of hers. Very, very nice. And everyone, I think, because I'm obviously joking, that I did all the voices. I didn't do all the voices, obviously, and it's not just that they hire and people who work there to do them. They got a lot of really, really good actors on that game, and you can really tell when you play it. Like, I haven't played it because I haven't got that far yet, but I've looked at the YouTube clips because I'm obviously interested. And a lot of the NPC interactions, they got some really colorful, really nice voices and some great actors involved. So
absolutely,
I think they did a really good job with the casting.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so many characters that are very rich. I just mentioned very rich and very different, and I love interactions of those. And I wish that happened with me more. I mean, in the sense of like when I'm playing the game, I wish I could just talk to these people instead of trying to kill someone in front of me and dying. Because I remember the first boss battle that you were mentioning that you cannot cross. I could not cross because I remember this. When you die, you go back, you kind of respawn with this, and there's this guy standing right next to you who can repair everything for you for free. And I remember like I was dying so much, and I was joking to my friends like that one person was repairing things for me. Probably he's tired by now to see me coming back every single time, 50 plus times that I've been just dying.
Hang on, is that the Smith?
I think so. I think it's the first boss, the first ever boss that you do. You're gonna come back, and that's the one guy who repairs everything for free for that.
Yeah, that's boss. Me as well.
Wow.
Yeah. He says something like, "If you want anything fixed, you come to me."
Yeah.
He's the guy who fixes your armor for you. Yeah, the Smith. Fillmore, I think he's called.
Oh yeah, yeah, I think so. Wow. So you are everywhere.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
It
But
is.
hey, but you didn't know, and a lot of other people didn't know. So as long as people don't know, it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea. Thanks for letting me know. Now I know that you are probably all of them.
No, I'm not,
Oh yeah.
but quite a few.
Quite a few, definitely. But yeah, one of the characters that obviously people know you from, and you mentioned this earlier, is Sigma in Overwatch. People,
Yeah.
it's so cool because the character came in 2019, and even now, obviously, people are playing it. And I did not know how. I love the character; it's so cool, the difference. And there's a subreddit specifically for Sigma called Sigma Mains, and everybody literally just post videos, talk about how to get better and all that
Oh,
stuff. And I
really?
was like, what? I did not expect that there would be a particular subreddit because I knew
I
Overwatch
gotta go
as
on that.
yeah, you gotta get on there. It's very cool, and that character is very, very fun. And you mentioned about how you auditioned and you had to kind of come back as well. You were brought back to
Yeah.
do it again. And so when you got into the game and when you know playing or voicing this character, did you how did you kind of come by on how to really play this character? Did you take inspirations from some other pieces of like movies or characters that you've seen to kind of get better understanding of how to do this?
Uh, when I saw the design and when I saw him lifting rocks, I mean, I thought of Akira, the,
Oh,
the the film, you know.
yeah,
So I thought of Tetsuo, who's got, because he's got special powers, but it's not a good thing, you know. He's not. It's not like it's destroying him.
yeah.
And I saw like a little parallel, and I don't know if they did that on purpose, if they were inspired by that as well. It's probably a coincidence because I don't think it's that obvious. It's a very different kind of thing, but I think it's because it has. I mean, the game, you know how the characters in the game are always a bit softer and a little bit more Disney-esque looking
Yeah,
than some of the concept art for those characters.
absolutely.
And the concept art for Sigma was much more Japanese looking and a bit more gritty, I think. And that's the drawing that they showed me on the wall when I did the voice. And that kind of, and he had the, it wasn't his balls. It was some rocks, I think.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe it was his kinetic orbs, they're called. I don't know. I can't remember what it was. But I think that he was making stuff float, and he was floating. So I thought, I was Tetsuo. But Tetsuo is an older man, you know. So what would that sound like? And I was talking to the casting director about who the hell this character is, and that he's actually an innocent character. He's a good guy. He's a scientist. He's passionate about his job, about what he does. And that's really what he wants to talk about. And I thought, oh, that's easy for me because I have that with animation, you know? So I just put a lot of myself into the innocent scientist part of the character. But obviously, you know, sound a little bit older and a bit more epic and gamey,
Yeah.
and heightened, we should say.
Yeah.
But kind of warm and kind and caring, you know, kind of have a warmth to the voice, and then juxtapose that with when he goes nuts. We call it God mode.
Oh.
When he becomes
Yeah.
a killer, and when you don't mess with him. And there's like a schizophrenia almost in him, a duality. There was a word, contrast, which I wrote down, and I actually use all the time for pretty much everything I do, because I think it's one of the most balance is yin and yang and up and down and left and right. And, you know, if someone goes up over here, something else has to come down there. It's always nice to have contrast in anything you do, you know. You do a little bit of this, but then you have to do a little bit of that to kind of compensate for that. I think it's a good way to approach animation as well, and storytelling and everything, just to bring order and balance in the chaos.
Yeah.
And so he could be really soft and kind and gentle on the one hand, but then he's really loud and crazy and on the other hand, because when I saw the design, which is really like tough and rough, and you don't mess with this guy because he's going to kill you like that, and that's obvious. So I thought, I don't really need to match that with a screamy, shouty, angry, aggressive voice, because if I do that, that's the obvious thing to do. But if I make him generally, even if he's in his more aggressive things, if he's just kind of more calm, and and we talked about it. It's like, for him, everything is science, so everything is clinical. So, he says, you don't understand the gravity of the situation. He's not necessarily angry when he says that. It's just he's just telling you the way it is. But then at the end, the situation, you add a little bit of like, you add a little bit of that, you pepper the lines a little bit with that sense of an underlying tension or aggression or power. And then that becomes something. And I think those are the thoughts and the discussions that we had when we talked about the character. And then, of course, we did that cinematic first, the origin story.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard this, but I've told this a few times, where maybe I could do it now because I'm so familiar with the character. But when we were still finding out who the hell this was and what he was supposed to do and what he was supposed to be, it was too. I said to Andrea, the director, I said, I don't think I can do all these nuances in one take. So why don't we do? I don't know if it was her or me who suggested it. I think it was her who suggested it, but she says, "Is this a really crazy idea?" And I said, "No, this is perfect, because I wouldn't know how to do it in one take. Can we please do multiples where I do the whole thing soft, and then I do the whole thing kind of normal, and then I do the whole thing aggressive, and then I do the whole thing where I just go nuts." And that's kind of how we did it. And that gave them a sort of a kaleidoscope of ideas that they can then pick and choose what they wanted from and put the thing together that way. And that made it quite powerful for me when I first saw it, because I didn't know what they were going to choose, because I hadn't done the acting only one way again and again and again until they were happy. And then I went home. I did all sorts of different stuff. And then I went home. So I didn't know what they were going to do with it. And then when I saw it put together, I had goosebumps, because I thought, this is great. Because of the music and the sound effects, the sound design is so good on that thing, and the editing is so tight. And so I almost felt like I was a member of the audience, because, usually when you work on something, like with Ori and the Will of the Wisps, it's a bit of a shame, because I love the Blind Forest so much. It's a bit of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it was fantastic to work on Will of the Wisp, because I got to experience that and give my ideas to that game. But on the other hand, I never had the experience that a player would have to pick that game up for the first time and play it all the way through. So I kind of missed out there. By the time we finished with the game, I didn't want to have anything to do with it for at least 6-7 months, probably a year before I looked at it again, because I was done with it, But with Sigma, with that origin story, because they had done so much that I wasn't aware of when I first saw it, I was blown away by it. I thought, oh, this is great. So that was really cool. Yeah, we did that first, and then by then, I had a really good sense of what the character was like and how to play him, and then it was easier to come back and do the actual in-game voice lines and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I did know that you did the short first, the origin story first, and that helped you. And I feel like that's the best way to do it, because, as you mentioned, you now know how to do how it's actually sounds like, and then it'll be much easier to do all these lines, because there's so many lines that you have to record now. List of them.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people who were saying, and I feel like kind of the same way, where every other character obviously has these kind of origin stories, but when it was Overwatch 1 and when these new characters were kind of coming in, every character has an origin story and then something. But for Sigma, it was origin story, and that's it. And it felt like the origin story was done kind of quickly. But do you feel like, maybe just for your opinion, do you feel like that there could have been more that, in terms of lore or story for Sigma, that could have been shown that wasn't there?
Yeah, of course, because that means that I get to do more work.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I love that character, and I love the community, and I love that it's so successful, and that there's so much love for the character and for the whole all the characters and the lore. Well, you know, League of Legends did a TV show
Yes.
called Arcane, which was very successful. And a lot of people, including myself, think it would be absolutely amazing if they did something like that for Overwatch. Now, a lot of people would probably argue that it's a bit late for that, because it takes a few years to make a show like that.
True.
And I think that, you know, the game is probably not quite as popular as it once was. So I don't know if they would want to risk that kind of investment in something. But I do think that the characters are fantastic. But I do also think that, you know, you can what's so powerful about the characters is the fact that you know so little about them. Because, you know, it's not you're not a viewer, you are a player, and you play as these characters. So you always want to project a lot of your own personality into these characters. And the if they're blank pages, I wouldn't say empty shells, because they give them so much interesting stuff already, and they're very specific personalities, and they have very specific traits, and they are quite defined. But there's still so much left to the imagination, and that allows the players to project so much of their own stories and their own thoughts and ideas onto those characters. And I think that's probably why the characters are so loved, because there are these endless possibilities with these characters, and it's kind of nice to always want to know more about them, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that they could have done more with Sigma, and maybe and hopefully they will. You know, every now and again we still get asked, us silly Overwatch actors, we still get asked to come in and record a few lines here and there.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, I can't say too much about it of that which has not been released yet. But there have been many talks about other stuff. You know, there was the whole what was it called? Well, story mode, I think they called it, right? Which apparently, you know, they're still developing. It's still coming at some point. I don't know what. I have no idea if it's dead or if it's. I don't know. They announced it in 2019.
Yes.
When they announced Overwatch 2, and I hope that it's still coming, because I think it would be a great addition to the thing, you know.
Absolutely.
And I'd love to be part of it. Yeah. No, the more that they do, the better. You and me.
Yes, absolutely. I do believe that there should be more. And I think that as you mentioned, the story mode, which was a thing that was announced, and now we are unsure. Many believe it's already done, it's gone, it's canceled and whatnot. And so a lot of people are kind of disappointed on that side, but I don't know what's going on there. So hopefully we can see more of that. But, you know, the fans have always been there supporting characters, supporting actors, and all that. And you have interacted with these fans. You've been in cons. So what has that part of life been, interacting with the fans from a video game and a character that you played? You know, it's so crazy must have been crazy to meet all these fans and, you know, sign posters and what.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. It's really amazing. It's fantastic because I mean, you heard so many stories of people you know, who are and it sounds dramatic, but it's true, you know, who were in a bit of a bad place, and then this game got them through it. And I never really believed, because I don't know, I just don't think that much of myself, but I never believed that it has got anything to do with me, but it's the character, you know. And the other characters. I think it's got more to do with the community of players. It's really it's the other players, because a lot of people play it online while they have their microphones on, right? And they have talks to each other, and some people meet their wives and their husbands through playing, and they meet their best friends through playing, and they you know, they make all sorts of connections while doing this, and that's fantastic, is the community, and that's amazing. But yeah, I've had people say that they were in a really dark place, and that the character really got them out of it, and that they said, thank you so much for your work. And I'm going like, oh wow, it's amazing, you know, the love for that character and for that game. It's just really, really special. And of course, you know, the Andrea, the casting director and director of Sigma, the voices, when we finished the recording, she said, "Oh, you better get your social media ready because you're going to blow up." And I said, yeah, whatever. I didn't believe it. I took it with a big grain of salt, but I should have. I thought that it's just a voice for a game, and no matter how popular the game, it's just a voice. It's just a character, and no one really cares about that stuff. But and I didn't know. I guess I hadn't done my research. I didn't know that there was this massive fan community of people going who wanted to know stuff, and it's just amazing. You go to a convention and they come with people make cuddly toys for you, and they bring sweets, and some of them are really nervous when they meet you, and they go, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you," and "Oh, it's amazing," and "Can I have a hug?" And I say, "Yeah, of course you can have a hug." And it's amazing. And some people just sit there for 5 minutes and tell you about their life story. And some people ask questions. They really engage with you and with the community, and they just pour their hearts out into it. And it's really, really, really amazing to see. Especially because it's quite a new world for me, because I've been really focused on animation. I love games. I do play a lot of games. Even now, I try to play games. I recently discovered the new Prince of Persia, which is actually very much like Ori, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's good fun.
What?
So have you tried it?
Yes. Lost Crown. You're playing Lost Crown, I believe so. Prince of Persia. Oh wait, there's two new games came out. Prince of Persia, Lost Crown. There's another one.
Came out earlier this year.
Yeah, both actually came out earlier this year. And there's another Rogue something, I think it is called. I could be wrong. But I did play the Lost Crown, which is both games.
It's a Metroid game.
Yeah,
it's a very much
like
a Metroid.
I think both games were kind of like that. But the second one that came out, I think Rogue something it's called. Could be wrong. So that game, I remember seeing that game, like, oh yeah, that's very like Ori-like and like isometric and all that stuff. So yeah, I was really into it. Yeah, I played that one.
Yeah. I'm just getting into it now. And I don't know. I don't even know why the hell I mentioned that. Why did I mention that? I can't remember now. Because it's. I do this all the time. I think I mentioned something on the side, but then that becomes the main story for 5 hours, and then actually we've got this main thing that we were going to talk about. I just mentioned it as an aside that lasted way too long, just to say, and not very convincingly, that I don't have a lot of time for these things. So I want to play games and I want to get into all this stuff, but I just don't have the time. The whole gaming and also conventions and stuff, I mean, it's fantastic, but I'd never really been to one before. I've been to, I think, a few, like SIGGRAPH, or computer science, like computer graphics, and I've been to animation film festivals. That was more my thing, and even that I never really had time for. So, but then I started to get invited to them, and of course I said yes because I wanted to know what it was all about. It was I thought, oh, that could be fun experience. Let's see what this is all about. And then to see the fans and that come to meet people like Cara Theobald and who plays Tracer and myself, and a bunch of other people, and you're there. I did some voices on an Assassin's Creed game as well, and there's a whole bunch of Assassin's Creed people there, and there's some Red Dead Redemption people over there, and there's some Overwatch people over here, and you all go out for a drink at night and have a laugh backstage, and you meet all these people, hobbits and dwarves and Doctor Who people, and it's really fun. And it's a fun experience also just to walk around and to see how passionate people are about movies and comics and games and anything that we used to describe as nerd culture, I guess. It's just it's amazing. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's wonderful. I've never been to conventions myself, so hopefully one day I get to meet someone in person. All these actors that I got to talk to, meet you in person. Anybody in person would be fun. I live all the way across the ocean, so it would be super hard. But I know I've been taking so much of your time right now, but there are a few questions from the fans. If you're okay with it, there's some.
Yeah, go on then.
Okay, cool. So these are all these fans from Overwatch. So
Okay.
Someone, Shy Cats asked, "Did you know that some of the Sigma's voice lines are being used into TikTok videos, which are getting viral? Like one of the apparently release me voice line is being used in every single TikTok or any TikTok which is not even related to the game. It's going
Really?
somewhere else.
No, I didn't know that.
It's
Maybe they
insane.
should pay me every time they use it. Um, that'd be nice.
That'd be nice. Yes, that'd be nice.
No, I didn't. I mean, there have been a few songs and there have been a few things over the years that have gone viral, and a few people make funny clips. So I'm aware that these things exist, but I'm not on TikTok myself, so I don't look at it.
Yeah.
I installed it, I think, last year or the year before. I can't remember, and I just was, I was sucked into this rabbit hole of social media crack. And an hour or 2 or 5 days later, when I woke up, I thought I need to get rid of this. So I instantly got rid of it on my phone, and I don't think it'll ever go back there because it's dangerous, that stuff.
It is very dangerous. Once you get into that loop, it's hard to get out and stop.
Yeah,
Mostly.
yeah, yeah. Be
Firefly
careful,
Arc.
kid.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Firefly Arc asks, "What has been your favorite emotion to record for Sigma, and what's one emotion you would like to express in an interaction between your character and any other?"
An emotion. I think. Well, Sigma. I just think it's Sigma as a scientist because he's so inquisitive, and I love. He's got these little lines when I think he's talking about an ant or a little creature on
Yes.
the ceiling. Hello, little guy, or little friend, or something like that. He says like,
Yeah.
and he's just kind of mesmerized by the smallest of beings, of creatures, and so I think the emotion is inquisitiveness, and he could be inquisitive with anyone really. Maybe some of the nice looking lady characters.
Mm. Yeah, I think I don't know which character there was, but he interacted in that way. But the character asked, I don't know which character, but the character asked something to Sigma, and then he just completely ignored apparently, and then just went, "Oh, look at that ant!" Like I was like, and then the
Yeah,
character replied again, and he still continued about the ant. So I was like, "Oh,
yeah.
that's very interesting." Um, Joking Gaming asks, "If you had to make a voice line for Sigma where he eliminates a specific character, what would it be?"
There was a Dutch line because he's Dutch,
Yes.
like me, the character, and I was asked to ad lib something, and I was singing a song, and I was saying lekkere stroopwafel, which is a Dutch waffle biscuit type confectionery, sugary thing, and it's very nice, and it's Dutch, and that became a thing that got quoted back to me, and again at a lot of conventions, and there's a few Dutch delicacies and snacks that. There's a Dutch snack called bitterballen, and bitterballen are basically deep fried balls of no one knows what kind of meat.
Okay.
It's a secret. It's like a meat ragu with breadcrumbs or panko, deep fried. So you got these deep dark brown balls of crunchy deep fried meat goodness, and you have it with some mustard and a
Oh,
beer if you're lucky. And it's a really, really nice bar snack. And you can't get it anywhere but in Holland. I mean, of course, some big cities you can import it or whatever, but it's never quite the same. But all over Holland, you have these. And every time I go back, I eat them a lot. And Sigma has these kinetic orbs.
yeah.
So I would love for him to have some bitterballen floating, and he can throw these at his enemies, and maybe say something along the lines of eet een bitterbal, of hier een bitterbal op je hoofd, something like that, as he throws these bitterballs at his opponents. I think that could be fun. In fact, I think it's a pretty good idea.
I think that's the next update coming up. I got it. Sigma's next update.
Yeah, write to your local Blizzard employee, and hopefully you'll get it done.
That'd be great. Oh my god. Marin asks, "What do you think about Sigma not wearing shoes?"
I love it. That's it.
That's it.
I
Perfect.
don't know. It's a strange thing. Yeah, he just doesn't wear shoes. I think he likes to keep his feet cool because they get quite warm in the heat of battle, and so he likes to just air them out.
Makes perfect sense. I don't know why that's even a question at this point. Ghetto Kittens asked, do you remember recording the line, "What is that melody?" And did you realize the significance that that line will hold for the fans?
No, yeah, I do remember it, of course, because it was part of that big origin story thing that we did, and he says it a couple of times, and so yeah, I remember that. That was fun because that was him at his most crazed or raged or confused or insane, whatever you want to call it. His most extreme intense, his extreme sadness and confusion and delusion all roll into one. Almost a sort of psychosis. So that was that was good fun. But I didn't know that it was also going to be in the game. And I didn't know that it was going to be all about, I just thought that the classical piano music under the origin story was nice, a nice touch, because it kind of contrasts nicely between his craziness and his intenseness and his scientific mind. I thought, oh, this is an educated man. He's very calm and very collected. So this nice, calm, beautiful piano piece fits perfectly with that part of his character. But I didn't know then that it was going to be all about music and melody and hearing things and voices. And well, I kind of did, but not to the point, that it became such a big thing. But yeah, that's what is that melody is the thing that people always ask me to do. And I usually do it in the calm way. What is that melody? And not in the screaming version of it, because that's a bit much.
That's a bit. Yeah,
you can play the game to hear that.
Yeah, I can play the game and hear that. Yeah, of course. That is a great line. I love that line. It has somehow got that significance, and everybody just. I feel like when I ask people on Reddit, like, hey, if you have any questions, and there's like 10 people saying, can you ask him what is that melody? I'm like, okay, guys, can you ask something else? But yeah, that was a good one.
It was funny that last time I was at a convention. This is already, I think it was last year. It was a while ago. They had just released this Funko Pop.
Yes.
Little whatever you call it, maquette, little puppet, toy, action figure. And a lot of people came with those and said, "Can you sign this?" Yeah, of course, happy to. And I thought I was being clever. Because he's in a box, I said, "I bet you want me to write 'Release me' on this box." And they said, most of the time, people said, no, we just want, what is that melody? We don't like that idea.
You don't like "Release me." No, what is that melody is the one. Apparently.
Hey, I aim to please.
Sylvme asked, do you think your experience as an animator has helped you as a voice actor?
Yeah, probably. I think so. We talked about it earlier with the balance thing and up and down, and I think rhythm. I think you'll find that a lot of animators are quite musical, and that doesn't mean that they are good at playing instruments, but they have a flair or a feel for rhythm and tempo and flow. And I think those things are very important when you're crafting a movement and a performance on screen. And it's just as important, I think, when you're recording a voice, because even though you're saying something really dryly, you're always trying to put a little bit of music in it and a little bit of, trying to make things slightly interesting and go up and down and inflect. And I think that's musical and rhythmical. And I think all those things are related. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you mentioned like animator having rhythms. It makes even more sense now. Like, that definitely is.
Playing with time. Right?
Yeah, definitely. The last question is from Billy, who asked, have you played Overwatch 2?
Yes.
Yes.
But only once. I still have it installed. I see the icon right there on my desktop. And I look at it every day, and I never click on it because I just never have the time. It's so stupid. But
Yeah.
the problem with me is that I have it on my PC. Really should get it on the console, I think. But the thing is, I'm here in my office all day working, looking at my computer screen. I'm in meetings and I'm working on stuff and drawing and designing and doing. And then at the end of the day, I go downstairs and I cook a meal for my family. And then afterwards, I put my daughter to bed, and I have a tiny little time window of time left with my lady. And then the last thing I want to do is go back to my office and look at the computer screen again.
Yeah.
And that's at the moment the only place where I have Overwatch available to me. So I really should. And then in the weekend, I want to stay away from this office room altogether. So I think that's the problem. That's the reason why I haven't really done it. I got it the moment it came out, and I tried it, and I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going to get into this. I want to learn all about this now, because I got my ass kicked a lot in Overwatch when I played it, and I thought, Overwatch 2, I'm gonna master this. I'm going to become the best of Sigma, and then I'm going to shout out voice lines as I kill everyone.
Yes.
But that still hasn't happened. Maybe one day. I hope
Maybe
so.
one. I think
I really do want to do it. I'm not just pretending. I really do want to play it, but I got to find that little window of time. But maybe after I finish Prince of Egypt, which is on a console downstairs, I can get. If I got Overwatch on a console, that's probably
better. Yeah.
Probably how I'm going to end up playing.
It's like that's you got the plan. Get it on console. PlayStation, Xbox. Which one do you have? PlayStation.
I've got a PlayStation 4, yeah,
yes,
and a Switch.
So need to get a Switch. But yeah, console is the way, and I hope you get to play the game, because I've played that game, Overwatch, since the beta came out in 2016. I've been playing that since. I stopped obviously midway, but I played that since. I also have that on my desktop, and I don't open it. Just the same as you, because I have the same issue. But I just want to say thank you so much, really, today, for giving me your time, talking to me about Overwatch, animation, which I really love, games, and everything in between. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been really informative for me.
Thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for listening too.
Yes.
And looking at our beautiful faces.